And let's start Periscope as well. There we are. Wonderful. So. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Immigrant Spirit podcast. Here at immigrantspirit.com, we aim to help professional, driven, proactive people to build the career that they dream of and overcome the many obstacles that you face in the job market if you are in any way unusual. And a lot of our readers have experienced this over and over and over, that they get judged not by their skills and their ability to contribute to your goals, but simply by a label that someone sticked on you. That's why we are very sympathetic to help people build a more open, more inclusive world. And the man that I interviewed today has done a great deal with his organization to bring this goal just into reality. Welcome, Matt Beard, Executive Director of AllOut. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, good to be here.
Matt, tell us a little bit about AllOut, what you are doing, what is your mission, and then we talk about how our listeners can contribute to your goals and maybe even work for you.
Great, thanks, Chris. So AllOut is an LGBT plus campaigning organization, and our mission is to work towards a world in which nobody anywhere has to sacrifice their family, their freedom, their safety, or their dignity because of who they are or who they love. And the way we do that work is predominantly through a theory of change that we call people power. We believe that when lots of small voices come together around the world, that can make a very loud noise. It can change conversations, it can change hearts and minds, and ultimately then change lived experience for LGBT plus people around the planet who are experiencing violence, discrimination, exclusion. You know, some of the things that you were mentioning in your introduction.
Mm-hmm. And what is the next big goal that you have set for yourself as an organization?
Yeah, I'll split that into two areas, sort of an internal challenge and an external challenge. And I'll start with external. I think as people listening to this right now and who'll be listening to it later are probably very well aware, we are living in a world in which there is considerable rollback on human rights, and that includes LGBT plus rights. We have a situation, for example, where in a European Union country, Poland, 80 municipalities have declared themselves so-called LGBT free zones. We live in a world in which activists in Russia are murdered because they're on a kill list. We live in a world in which countries like Uganda and Tanzania are regularly hunting down and imprisoning LGBT people. And even in countries like the US, where we've seen a ban on trans people in the military, for example. So we're very much facing somewhat a backlash against some of the rights that have been achieved for LGBT plus people over the last 30 or 40 years. Internally, our challenge is very much related to that people power model that I talked about. In a world in which trust in digital communications and digital technology is decreasing, following Cambridge Analytica, Brexit, the 2016 presidential election, we have a big challenge, and it does relate to this role of bringing our supporters into an environment of trust and loyalty to the organization, people who will be passionate about using digital tools to campaign for LGBT rights.
Yeah, I understand. Especially we had this example just 2 days ago where bad preparation hurt the Democrats very much in the Iowa caucus.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So tell us a bit about the kind of people that you're looking for to help you in this mission.
Sure. So without going kind of specifically into the role yet, just to be
Let's talk about the attitude first, and then we talk about
to be a member of the team and to be successful at AllOut. I think the very first thing that we need is a really genuine and heartfelt passion for human rights, and specifically for LGBT plus rights around the world. I want to point out here that doesn't mean that people who apply for this position need to be a member of the LGBT plus community. Nearly half of our team self-identify as straight allies, and nearly half of our 1.5 million supporters around the world self-identify as straight allies. And we believe that this allyship between the LGBT community and our straight allies makes us powerful. But that passion for LGBT rights is the very first and most important element. Another thing I'd call out in terms of the kind of person that we are looking for, we need people who are self-starters, who are able to work independently, who are able to show kind of innovation and a kind of get up and go spirit. And one of the main reasons for that is that AllOut works as a global organization. We have people all over, we're small, we only have 14 people, but those 14 people are spread around the planet. And most of us, including me, work in a city or in a country on our own. And we get up in the morning and we speak to our colleagues via video, but we actually only get to see each other once or twice a year. And so you need to be someone who's able to kind of self-motivate and be a self-starter.
Sounds actually like a dream job, because it, of course, it also gives you a lot of freedom. And
it really gives you a lot of flexibility. So we are happy for people to locate wherever they want. We provide funding for our staff members to go to a co-working space if that's what they prefer, but if they want to work at home, they can do so. And we also enable people to move around the world as they wish. So if they want to spend 6 months of the year in one location, 6 months in another, we can enable that. We don't fund it, but we enable it. Then the third thing I call out in terms of the kind of people we need, we need people who are true internationalists, who are not only happy to work in a very multicultural international environment, but who thrive, who love working in that environment. It's an incredibly international team with 7 or 8 nationalities represented, and we work with our frontline partners, LGBT groups around the world, from all continents, from Africa, Asia, Latin America, the entire world. And so we need people who really get a buzz from being in that incredibly international environment.
Sounds all very, very appealing. Now tell us about the actual job that you're hiring for today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are hiring for a new role that follows a small restructure in the organization. The job title is the Senior Manager of Supporter Engagement. And what this role does is leads AllOut's online marketing work. What does that mean? Really what it means is that this role identifies new creative ways to grow and cultivate our membership. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 1.5 million supporters on our active list. So these are people who are on the list and who are currently active. We have around 4 million people altogether on the list, but 1.5 million people are on that list. And we need someone who has the skills, the experience to grow and cultivate that online membership. That's about acquiring new supporters through multiple channels, through email, through social media, through WhatsApp, through messaging bots. We need someone who's very, very experienced and clear about how you can use digital tools to bring new supporters into an organization.
Mm-hmm. If I may ask, this is a very sophisticated role, for which you need someone who really knows what they are doing. Mm-hmm. From your side, as the executive director, if you imagine for a second you already hired someone and 6 months have passed and you evaluate this person, what would be the most important factor that will tell you, yeah, this guy, this girl, they did a great job? What would be the success criteria that you look first for?
So if you'll allow me 3 things rather than 1.
Sure.
So the first thing would be, in terms of metrics, it would be that person's ability to continue the legacy that has been started by our current supporter engagement director, who's moving into a new role. And that is 1, the ability to bring new supporters into the organization. 2, the ability to effectively retain and engage the supporters we already have through a supporter journey that inspires people, that makes them very proud to be part of AllOut, that makes them just want more. Makes them want to take more action, give more money. And then the third thing is fundraising. So we raise about 45% of our overall income from small donations that people make digitally online from around the world. And so the third area would be that this person's ability to run an effective digital fundraising operation. So that means everything really, from working with our frontline partners to create the stories around the fundraising ideas, writing the copy for the fundraising emails, designing the social media strategy, and monitoring the initial results and running follow-up actions where necessary, evaluation, and taking that cycle all the way around. So in the next fundraising appeal, we've taken those learnings and we're implementing them for the next round. So acquisition of supporters, retention of supporters, and fundraising are the 3 big areas that we would measure this person on.
So if I would be very unfair and make you choose one of the 3 things, what would you say, what is the most important one? To retain the existing supporters, to win new supporters, or to fund more of your operations through the small donations?
Right now, the retention is the most important element. Because the fundraising very much is a product of the retention. Anyone who's going to apply for this job should already know that this is a game of math, right? That the fundraising returns are a product of how many active people you have on the database. And so retaining those supporters is incredibly important. What we've found is that we have been able to generate an increasingly loyal group of core supporters, and I can't possibly say how important it is that the person who secures this role is very, very good at keeping those core supporters happy, proud, inspired, enthusiastic, because it's the lifeblood of the organization.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're looking for someone who really is able to use both halves of their brain. Absolutely. So on one side, they really need to understand human beings and how they act and how they make decisions. But on the other side, they also need a very strong analytical skill to really look at data and see what is really there or what is really not there.
Yeah, absolutely. Those I think you've described that very well, that kind of 2-brain strength is really important in this role.
So a little break here. If you're listening to this podcast on Crowdcast and you want to ask Matt, and you want to ask Matt a question about this job position, please look at the bottom of your screen. There is a button that says ask a question. Guess what? You can use that button to ask a question. You can also vote on other people's questions. And at the end of the interview, I will ask the top 3 questions that the audience has asked to Matt so that you get more detailed information. If you watch this live on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Periscope, unfortunately, you cannot ask questions. But I'm sure you can reach out to AllOut later to apply for the job or get more information. If you are listening to the recording of this podcast on iTunes, Apple, and so on, guess what? You cannot ask questions because this recording is already over. Good. If you want to ask a question, then I invite you to do it now because we will pretty fast move on. Use the Ask a Question button. Yeah, Matt, thank you for all this information, and thank you for presenting our listeners with these great opportunities. Is there one question that I did not ask you that you wished I would have asked you?
Yeah, there is. I think one question that I think could be useful for people who are maybe considering applying for this is for this post holder, what would be the sort of real moments of pride and job satisfaction? Just an example from our past. And the example I want to give is a case that some listeners may be aware of, maybe others not. But starting in 2017, in the Russian Republic of Chechnya, men perceived to be gay or bisexual started to be rounded up by state authorities, taken to illegal detention centers, where they were tortured and in some cases killed. One of the areas of fundraising that we work on is crowdfunding for our frontline partners. And we partnered with our Russian partners, the Russian LGBT network based in St. Petersburg, who were organizing the evacuations. And this was by a very, very long way, our most successful fundraising appeal ever. And this post holder would be responsible for these kind of appeals in the future. What this appeal did was raise approximately 10 times more than we usually do, and it enabled every single individual who requested evacuation from Chechnya. These are both men who'd been in the camps and survived, and people who were vulnerable and could have ended up inside those camps. It enabled every single one of them to be evacuated. It literally saved lives. And that is the kind of satisfaction that this post holder could have from his or her work, that it has a direct and very positive impact on lived experience of people around the planet.
Yeah, I think there's something to be immensely proud of. And I remember back in the time I was a member of the steering committee of ALDE party individual members together with Yuri Guana, who works for you. And a lot of you activists take a great personal risk to help people in danger of being discriminated, even killed. I remember Yuri Guana we were sitting in Brussels with other members of the steering committee when we got the message that Yuri got arrested in Moscow for the terrible crime of trying to give a petition to the Russian government.
Absolutely.
To uphold their own constitution. Yeah.
And just on that point, I just want to point out to your listeners that any member of staff who puts themselves in a position like that, as Yuri did, is very much based on their own decision, and we provide security support. But nobody at AllOut is required to put themselves in danger as part of the job. That is important to point that out as well. Good.
Matt Beard, thank you so much for joining us here today for the Immigrant Spirit podcast, talking about an open position at AllOut as Senior Manager of Supporter Engagement. Let's take at least one of the questions because we're running a little bit out of time. This question comes from Boniface Ochayink, I think. He says, I have a lot of experience working with vulnerable groups within nonprofit organizations. And my strengths are on project management and resource mobilization. I have passion to make a difference in the area of human rights, and I believe LGBT is an area that needs great support globally. I have research skills, report writing, and proposal writing skills that I believe are necessary for this job. Currently, he's living in Germany as a graduate student researcher. I think his question is probably, would it make sense for him to apply for the job?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Boniface. Without seeing your full kind of resume, it's difficult for me to answer that completely accurately. But what I would say is that what we absolutely need to see in your skills and experience profile, which you don't mention here, but maybe you have, is some experience using digital tools to raise money and to run a supporter program. Without those, your application, to be honest, would not pass the first barrier. So if you have those digital skills, if you've had some experience of using a digital program to raise money and to manage a supporter base, then please apply. I would say if you haven't, this probably isn't the right post.
But there will be more opportunities in the future.
Absolutely.
Here at immigrantspirit.com, we do regular interviews with German and other employers who hire in English, so you can start in English and learn the local language on the job. Upcoming interviews in the near future is, for example, My Toys, Lufthansa, and a good number of others that I can't talk about right now yet that will join us here. Matt Beard, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you personally all the best for the future and AllOut a great future, changing the world for the better. Thank you for joining us here.
Thanks so much for having me.
This was the Immigrant Spirit podcast. My name is Chris Piak. If you want to find 100 German employers who offer more than 3,000 English jobs in Germany, please subscribe at immigrantspirit.com. And join us again for the next episode of the Immigrant Spirit podcast with more employers who offer great jobs for international professionals. See you then. Bye-bye. So, great. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
I'm very sorry. I have to kick you out for the simple reason that there's no option here to stop the broadcast and continue.
Okay. All right. But thanks very much for this opportunity.
See you. Bye-bye.